2022 was a huge year for me.
Oh, there it is!
I visited 12 theme parks and Kolmården, which is 7 new places. Plus I also visited some other new establishments with rides to offer. So I got a total of 48 credits this year, beating my previous record for a year by 29. My previous record was 19, so that's a big upgrade. As such, I got a lot of new experiences, including my top 25 coasters getting completely rated. Seriously, my top 10 consists mostly of new coasters. Thus, I'm gonna count that top 25 down for you today and tell you my entirely new list. That list is of course based off of my personal opinions of what my favorite coasters are to ride, which I would rather ride, and generally how much fun I think they are. Starting off is Oblivion the Black Hole at Gardaland. It used to be years since I last rode a dive coaster, 5 years to be exact, when I rode this in Gardaland in 2017.
It's been 84 years.
But after riding Kake at HeidePark again, I realized how much I love dive coasters. One trick pony, my ass. This dive coaster has a lot more to offer, including the theming, 2 fun inversions, and an amazing location. The drop is of course also excellent in itself, providing great flagector airtime, and it generally feels like a very completed experience. Number 24 is Desert Race at HeidePark. What a fun little bugger. This intimate accelerator is reasonably intense, providing a bunch of positive forces in the turns as well as great airtime in between. The forces themselves are great and the sense of speed is immaculate. And the airtime itself even reaches ejector levels. Not strong ejector, but it's very fun. Plus, of course, it has that gut-punching launch that completely yanks you down the track. That is easily the best moment of the ride. And all in all, it is a short but sweet experience that never really gets talked about, but I had tons of fun on it. Number 23 is Oikosat Kankan Coaster at Europa-Park. No, I'm not sorry. This custom muck ride is one of the most pure fun family coasters I've ever ridden. I never got to experience the original Oikosat, but I'm so glad that this ball of fun came out of its closure. It's a fun, unpredictable layout, especially because it's in complete darkness with a few theming elements here and there. There's airtime, plenty of laterals, and even some other wild mixtures of forces. And the theme itself is so excellent. The Moulin Rouge theme is fantastic, everything from the immersive queue to the beautiful lift hill sequence to the out-of-control theming of the layout. And by far the best part of the theming is the Kankan soundtrack that plays throughout the entire ride, which is my favorite onboard audio of any coaster. It boosts the fun factor to such a high level. It also used to be my favorite indoor coaster until I rode Adventures Assemble Flight Force this year at Disneyland Paris.
Excuse me, do you mind?
I understand that a lot of people are mad at this ride for taking away their beloved rock'n'roller coaster, and I feel bad for those people who lost that ride. But as someone who never got to experience the original, I got a pure fun experience out of this awesome and rare Vekoma LSM coaster model. I'm a big fan of the theming. I think the queue line and the pre-show and all of that is excellent. Plus, the ride itself actually kicks ass. It's a clone of Express at Walibi Holland, of course, so it features a really good launch, some forceful inversions, and other forceful moments that I feel like people never talk about. The pure awesomeness of this ride left my sister and I with a great adrenaline kick and basically the same reaction after the ride, which was, whoa, that kicked ass. And number 21 is Anubis the Ride at Plopsaland, Japan. This is one of only 2 Gerstlauer launch coaster models, and it's a ride that almost flawlessly packs a punch without interruption. Looking at you, banked bunny hill. Anubis the Ride has a complete roster of forces and has nothing missing in that regard. It starts out with an extreme launch, which is one of the most extreme LSM launches in the world. It has a bunch of positive forces all over the place, some great ejector airtime and floater airtime, and several moments of strong and sustained laterals. Plus, there's a moment of hang time. This is an awesome fast-paced thrill coaster. Number 20 is Blue Fire Mecha Coaster at Europa-Park. The original Mach launch coaster, now being cloned as religiously as the Batman clones,
You raise me!
Oh, scheiße! Is a great fun ride. Sure, it's not the most extreme, and I understand why people see it as a bit underwhelming, but personally I think it has a lot of great moments. It generally has a really good feeling of speed that starts out with a really snappy launch. This is not a typical shitty Mach launch. And the inversions are all great in their own way. Floaty, whippy, and extremely intense. Seriously, that inline twist is one of the best inversions out there. And there are several other great moments during the ride as well, plus the theming is absolutely wonderful and epic and immersive. Not a powerhouse, sure, but it's a ride I thoroughly enjoy. Number 19 is Lost Gravity at Walibi Holland. I see this as a slightly better Blue Fire, as they feel quite similar, but Lost Gravity is just more complete. And and the airtime is way more pronounced. This rare mock Big Dipper is mostly known for its lateral full drop, but for me this ride is more known for the airtime and the two really good inversions. There are a bunch of fun twists and hills on this ride, and it feels very odd, but it's executed incredibly well. I have fun throughout this entire layout, and the weird elements all feel really fun. And of course, finally, the theme is really cool.
Me like.
Number 18 is Black Mama at Phantasialand. This was one of the last of the classic B&M inverts, and it's an overall pretty intense ride. Now, I only got one ride on it, and it did slightly disappoint me. I was expecting it to be more forceful than it was, but I will say that the forces are constant and they happen all the time. This ride is a bank for positive forces.
Alright, give me the money!
There are only a few moments that don't feature positive forces, mainly the 0G roll really, which is great and whippy in its own way, and the theming of this ride is of course phenomenal and incredibly immersive. Black Mama has one of my favorite stations ever. Now I definitely need more rides on this, as again I thought it was gonna be a little more intense than I essentially thought it was, and I also experienced a few moments of headbanging on it unfortunately, but I'm sure if I ride it with the right expectations next time, I might like it more. Still a really fun ride. Number 17 is Twister at Gröna Lund. This is one of those small gravity group wooden hybrids, and while it is small, this packs a punch. And yes, it has an incredibly weird flow of constantly getting up high, going slow, and then quickly falling down on a drop and then going fast. But that's part of what's so fun about it. That mixed with the perfect woody shake and some lateral jolts here and there, and especially the airtime is really fun. All the drops give really good ejector airtime pops in the back, and there are also hills that give good ejector or at least really solid floater. Plus the location next to the water is excellent. This is one of those rides that got me laughing uncontrollably because it's a very stupid but really fun ride. And final thing to note, sit in the back row, because the back row is extremely superior to the front row. Just barely beating it though at number 16 is Heidi the ride. Yeah, no one's probably gonna agree with this one being this high.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
But honestly, this coaster just made me realize even more how big a sucker I am for GCI Woodies. Holy shit, I love what these rides do. It's not a very intense ride at all, but there are a load of airtime moments all over the place, one after another. All are snappy and with good floater or at least some solid weightlessness. And there's also one legit ejector moment near the end. And of course, as every GCI should do, this also brings some really fun laterals that are either sustained or quick pops mixed with the airtime. It's a pure fun little piece of chaos and essentially feels like a mini Woden. Yes, that's foreshadowing.
I have seen it.
And number 15 is Monster at Gröna Lund. This is my favorite B&M invert. I like this fairly more than I did last year as well after I revisited this year. And it's one of those rides that's insanely fun, but it's really hard to explain exactly why it is as fun as it is, because it just is.
Well, she won't understand it any better than I do.
Generally, the positive forces are really good in those moments where they feature. All inversions are really fun and floaty and kind of bring you in awe. There's an airtime hill near the end, and generally that mixed with the amazing location, especially at night, is magical as all hell. Yes, it's a looping thrill coaster, but it has such a great sense of magic to it, and it still packs an intense punch. It's essentially the much better version of Demonen at Tivoli Gardens. But at number 14 at Europa-Park is Silver Star, beating it out as my favorite B&M. This hypercoaster often receives complaints about the first half, but I gotta say, I got some wonderful floater airtime in the first half, especially in the middle row, which is weird, but trust me, this ride feels like it has a bunch of high speed, the weightlessness is just great, and of course there is the second half, which is well praised, and I couldn't agree more. The second half brings two ejector moments, the best floater hill, positive forces, and great whip. But I still think the first half with the big camelbacks are insanely fun and feel really cool. Overall, a really great big coaster. Number 13 is Colossus Kampf der Giganten. Before this year, I couldn't remember one damn thing about this ride.
I forgot.
But I got to rewrite it this year, thankfully, and this intermittent prefab is a high-speed airtime machine. Regarding that speed, sit in the front row. That is an amazing experience. Especially with an open jacket, you feel like a fucking parachute. Anyway, the airtime is really good on this ride. Now, I will say I didn't find any strong ejector on the ride, but there's still plenty of solid ejector airtime, some moments of weaker ejector airtime, and some fun floater moments on top of that. It's a really fun ride, and it feels as big as it is. There are also plenty of really good positive forces and laterals as well, and oh my god, this is the smoothest Woody I have ever ridden by a far fucking margin.
You've shown the most spectacular improvement of any student I've ever seen.
This feels smoother than the majority of steel coasters I've ridden. I wouldn't call this an extreme coaster, but it is a really good thrill coaster. And oh my god, this theming at night is just amazing. At number 12 is Flug van Novgorod at HANSA-PARK. This is one of the most unique Gerstlauer Eurofighters out there. It has a flawless mix of thrill and theming, and it just screams epicness. All of it comes together in an insanely good balance with an amazing pre-show and station and a completely indoor second half, while it also features the great Beyond Vertical Drop, one of the most powerful launches in the world with a 1.4 second LSM launch. Great airtime, plenty of positive forces, and it generally feels like a huge experience overall, even though it's not a very long coaster. It packs a punch, and it's some of the best theming I've experienced. I do wish the layout had a bit more to offer, but it might very well still be the best Eurofighter out there. And number 11 is Fly. I know this is very low.
A new low.
And it's gone up and down my rankings a lot. I'm still very unsure exactly what I think of Fly, and this is a spot that matches how much I enjoyed my rides the most, I think. Please don't execute me. Objectively, this unique Vekoma flying coaster is perfect and probably one of the best rides in the world. The theming is absolutely unbelievable and feels like it's a completely different universe.
This is the shit!
Whereas the layout also brings a bunch of good positive forces, plenty of strong airtime, and 2 fun inversions. The comfort is one of the reasons why I don't like it as much as others. I'm not a big fan of having to look straight down and not being able to look forwards, because you can't look forward, not even in the front row, at least not without hurting yourself.
How long do I have to look?
As long as it pleases me.
I definitely need more rides on this because I'm confident it can go higher in the list the more used to it I get, because it is an absolutely incredible experience and I truly do love it. Starting off the top 10 though is Piraten at Djurs Sommerland. Sometimes all you need is a simple coaster with gut-punching forces, and Intamin Megalites do the job very well, or at least this one does. Piraten has a great mix of strong and sustained positive forces that are definitely grey out worthy, very whippy laterals, and of course powerful ejector airtime. There are several great elements on this ride and they come very rapid fire after each other. The most noteworthy moment is of course the Twisted Trio, these 3 twisted bunny hills that are all very strong in both whip and airtime. The ride is slightly exhausting, but it's absolutely awesome and packs a hard punch. Just barely beating it though is Goliath at Walibi Holland at number 9.
Number 9, Lord.
I believe most people would disagree with this placement, but I seem to like Goliath more than the average Thuzy. The average complaint for this Intamin Mega is the middle section being kind of boring, but I think the Twisted Bunny Hills and especially the Helixes are great fun. Otherwise, there are some great powerful elements here, several great strong ejector airtime moments, and some fun laterals and positive forces. The speed is good, the forces are good. A simple coaster, but one that's great all around. And it's because of that extra sense of speed and scale that I prefer to Piraten. At number 8 is Phoenix. This brand new Vekoma Mark 1101 looping coaster is one of the most well-balanced, best-paced, and most fluid coasters out there. Seriously, I cannot mention a coaster I've ridden with better flow than Phoenix. It's pure perfection.
Perfection.
There's so much airtime constantly being thrown at you. While it's not super strong ejector, I would still say it's ejector for the most part. All 3 inversions are fucking amazing in their own way. The ride brings several moments of whip and also some moments of sustained positive forces, but at the same time it's not a super extreme coaster.
What happened to you?
But holy fuck, it's just pure fun. This is a perfect family-friendly throw ride, and Denmark's best coaster in my opinion. Number 7 is Wodan Timber Coaster at Europa-Park. I just love GCI Woodies to death. This is one of their largest coasters, and boy is it fun. The perfect word for this ride is just chaos and speed. It never slows down, there are laterals side to side constantly mixed with quick airtime pops, and you're just being thrown around all the time. All that mixed with a great woody shake and very high speed is amazing. Seriously, it feels like it never slows down, and it just constantly has its top speed running along the track. All that great chaos mixed together is why the fun factor is insanely high for me on Wodan. And number 6, y'all are definitely gonna kill me because this is a ride to happiness. Yeah, the controversial opinions keep stacking up. This Mach Extreme Spinning Coaster is known as one of the best coasters in the world, and yes, it's pure insanity. It's so many levels above any other spinning coasters I've ever ridden, it's insane. There are 7 fantastic inversions on this ride, which are incredible mixed with the spinning. Seriously, this ride was definitely made for the spinning. And it has some of the greatest whip, floater, and hang time of any coaster I've ridden, as well as super strong airtime, including the only place I've ever felt airtime as strong as an RMC outside of an RMC. And overall, this spinning coaster is just pure madness. Now, this is the reason why it isn't any higher. I'm just not the biggest fan of spinning. It can get me a little bit nauseous, plus I think it has a pretty bad rattle.
What are you doing up there!
Staying away from you.
It's not going to be bad for everybody, but for me it's one of those rattles that kind of shakes my brain around in a really uncomfortable way that can make me nauseous a lot quicker. So it's not the most comfortable of rides for me personally, which is why I prefer to ride the top 5 more, but it didn't disappoint me and I think it's just as great as anybody else. Number 5 is Taron at Phantasialand. This Intamin Blitz is an incredibly complete experience. Klugheim itself is just a breathtaking location.
That's some serious gourmet shit.
Storming through it as well with tons of speed, going through buildings and rocks, and the layout itself is super fun. Sure, it has some pacing issues, as both the first and the second halves kind of dwindle out by the end, but I personally still have a lot of fun in those sections. Otherwise, the ride has 2 fantastic launches, plenty of moments of intensity, some of the greatest whip of any coaster I've ridden, as well as really good airtime, and this ride just has an immense level of fun, and such a high level of speed, especially in the front row. Number 4 is Wildfire at Kolmården Europa-Park. This is the largest RMC topper track out there, and it makes it the world's tallest wooden coaster. And they hit the fucking ball out of the park with this one.
Home run! Yay!
First, I just need to mention the location. That location is absolutely fucking gorgeous.
This is the most beautiful day!
It's the best location for any coaster I've ridden, period. The elements fit the location with the big wave turn, the small wave turn, the turnaround and more, sitting onto the cliffside and also facing the water itself. And the airtime on this ride is really, really good. There are plenty of moments of great ejector airtime, as well as some floater, which is kinda odd on an RMC, but it's welcome for me. And all 3 inversions are super fun in their own way, the stall being one of the greatest I've ever experienced. This ride also has some extremely aggressive whip. And regarding roughness, it's not really rough. It can wear you out, but it's still a very smooth coaster, and it generally gives an incredible experience with high intensity and a fabulous setting. Number 3 is Conda at Walibi, Belgium. This is just one of the best layouts ever. I need to ride more modern Intamin mega coasters for sure. There is so much airtime on this ride, and it's so strong as well. The ride starts out with a very sustained and large first half, with the outer bank camelback being my favorite element of all time, and then the second half is rapid fire and mind-blowingly fun. Everything goes from big and impressive,
That's quite big,
to small and chaotic. The ride also offers some very strong positive forces and a great sense of scale all the way through, not to mention that it's a smooth ride with great whip. Moments like the first drop are incredibly aggressive, the big camelback feel like they last longer than they should, and every single of the fast-paced moments later on do not let up in strength.
How did you get so strong?
Baba Booey.
And it easily has one of the best endings to a layout out there. And while it's only my 3rd favorite coaster ever, it is my 2nd favorite layout out there, easily. But something that just has to beat it for me is the Schwur-des-Kernen at HANSA-PARK. Who knew Gerstlauer's first Hyper Infinity coaster would be this weird? This is a clusterfuck of a layout, and there are so many violent forces. Without spoiling any of the surprises, there are just so many weird elements to this ride, including the non-inverting sea serpent roll, which is one of the best elements I've experienced. There's good airtime here, extreme whip, high positive forces, and it mixes so well with the theming. Kernon has the most epic theming and by far the greatest sense of grandeur on any ride I've ever ridden. The story, detail, and music in this ride's queue line, station, and pre-show, it's insane how grand and immersive this entire ride experience is. There is this room where you get your row chosen, and the first time I rode it, the theming in that room alone made it my favorite coaster. I hadn't even ridden it yet.
Not too shabby.
While I never thought this would actually get beaten for me, and it is now my 2nd favorite coaster, this ride still means so much to me. But at number 1, I just had to put Untamed at Walibi Holland at that spot. Sorry, Cameron. But this is the most violent and viciously fun ride I've ever ridden. RMC's iBox model is fucking bonkers. The power that this ride brings is unrealistic and feels illegal.
She is mine, and with absolutely no consequences.
The airtime strength of this ride is by far the strongest I've ever experienced, and it's wild that it's even allowed. Plus of the amount there is. It's constant and it's rapid fire and fast. I got 6 rides on it, but it was enough for me to have bruises on my thighs that lasted 5 days.
'Tis but a scratch. A scratch? I've had worse, you lie!
This ride is painful because of how strong the airtime is and how often it occurs, but it's my favorite pain ever. I love it to bits. Outside of the airtime, the ride also has very strong whip mixed with their airtime, not to mention the inversions, which are some of the best I've ever experienced. And the pacing and speed of this ride makes no sense. It's not a very tall coaster at all, but somehow it goes through a very long layout with plenty of ups and downs and still feels like it hits the top speed at the end. It's a world-class ride and it just could not have been done better. Holy fuck. Alright guys, that's all. I feel so lucky for having ridden so many of these amazing coasters in Europe by now, and there's still so much out there to experience. Holy shit. Let me know your list in the comments below or what you think of my list. I expect some of you want to behead me for putting Ride to Happiness and Fly at where they are.
Bring me his head.
But let me know down there. Otherwise, thanks for watching guys. Bye!